Good evening, you guys. Sunday evening, possibly the hottest day of the year thus far. I hope everyone's staying cool. I am probably gonna go take a shower after this just because it's such a hot day. But anyways, this is the last 30-day challenge video I'm gonna do in this group. So tomorrow I'll be doing it in a separate group. So make sure you click the link above if you'd like to join me over there. But let's get down to the topic. This one's a nitty-gritty one. I'm not gonna lie, kind of personal. But tonight I want to talk to you about when not knowing what you want actually hurts others. And this topic is important because I know in my life, most of my life, I've sort of operated under the assumption that it is more important to take care of others than it is to take care of myself. And so if you followed any of my videos by now, you might have gathered that I grew up in a bit of a dysfunctional family. I know we all have dysfunction, so I'm not trying to make any kind of comparisons, but there was quite a bit of dysfunction in my home growing up. And so as a result, I developed certain coping skills, and one of those primary skills that I developed was trying to emotionally care for others. And you end up in a point where you're it's like you're not even physically caring for somebody. Your radar, your arrows are so pointed on everybody else in the room that it's like you're trying to control things with your emotions, which is a very internal experience and not productive at all, and very much so not healthy. I can tell you that much. Sorry, I'm realizing my camera is a little bit off there. But anyways, sorry, distractions. So I grew up definitely worried about everybody else. And then as a result, I became very disconnected from what I actually wanted at the time. So I couldn't tell you what my deepest desires were at that point because they were non-existent. I had kind of gone numb to them so that I could care to the needs of others. Hey, Anna Maria, good to see you on here. And so that made for a tough road in my teenage and my 20s and my teenage years and my 20s. And how this ended up showing up in my life is because I didn't know what I actually wanted deep down inside. What I ended up adopting as my, what Sarah wants was very cookie cutter. So I've talked in another video about how I didn't know what I actually wanted to do with my life. So I think my first swing at it was, I want to be a lawyer, which is a very kind of unimagined, just to pull it out of I want to be a lawyer. Not to say that being a lawyer is a bad career by any stretch. It's just that was not what I was connected to at all. And so so I was disconnected from those things. And up until this point, it would have been one thing if it was only affecting me. And it was really only affecting me for a long time that I could see. I'm sure it was affecting others. But the really big way that it sort of punched me in the face and in the gut was that it actually led me to marry somebody for logic rather than love. And I know that's a weird statement to say, and this is not Forrest, just so you know. But in my 20s, I was in a relationship for several years with this man, and then I ended up marrying him. And it's sad to say, during that time, me being with him was because it made sense. Because, he had a good family and he came from a good home, and there were just these certain marks that I had ticked off as far as this is the right thing. This is a good match. This is a solid match. So that was a problem. If you've ever been with somebody that you're not in love with, that's a problem. So I discovered that this was happening, that this I discovered the reality of my situation when I actually began to feel depressed. So I remember points where I was driving home from work, and I remember one point in particular where I actually had to pull over into a parking lot because I just started crying for no apparent reason, like no apparent reason. And then the reason began to make sense to me, began to become clear to me, and then I think the point where it fully hit me that I had gotten myself into a situation that I didn't want to be in. It was when thinking about my future was depressing, because I knew everything, that I knew exactly how my future was going to unfold. I know that sounds weird, but I knew, okay, this is the point where we're gonna do this, and then this is gonna happen, and then this is gonna happen. And then at that point I realized, when you hear about those sort of stereotypical stories of, I don't know, like you hear people in sort of cookie cutter lifestyles who aren't happy and they end up like addicted to painkillers or something. I understood it in that moment, and I knew that I was on a fast track to that position. And that's when I was like, okay, this is not good. Now, at that point, just seeing my whole future written out in front of me like that, a piece of me felt like it would die. Like if I just said, all right, I just have to stick with this. And I did have friends who were very much of the, you don't ever get divorced ilk. And I remember having a conversation where they're like, well, maybe your marriage will turn out good in the long run. And I was like, what? Like, that just, every part of my insides were like, no, this is not right. And so what this situation did to me is that it created a very stark challenge to how I saw the world. And namely, that was, if I stayed with this man, it meant he could be happy. But if I left him, I would be happy. So it was literally this juxtaposition of, Sarah, it's either you or him. And the kicker of it all is, he was not a bad guy. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't rude. He just wasn't the right guy. And so, so I had to make the tough choice to, and maybe for some of you that wouldn't be a tough choice, but for me at the time, being as much of a people pleaser as I was, that was the hardest thing I had to do at that moment. And unfortunately, I have to live with the fact even now that I broke a perfectly good person's heart, just because I didn't know my own. And so going through this, I know this is, I'm gonna pivot this now. At this point, you're probably like, ooh, this is a depressing one. But the good part about going through this is that it allowed me to become very self-aware of what it felt like in my body to listen to my heart and to know what I actually wanted versus what I was just sort of like logicking, or even worse, between stories that I was believing that there were other people's stories that I was assuming for myself. And so I became keenly aware of how that emotionally felt in my body. And I think I've shared with you guys before, my body thinks and feels, I think and feels, I feel things as an emotion usually before I can put a conscious thought to it. Hey, Kevin. And so what this allowed me to do is it opened up the doors. This is going to sound melodramatic, but it unchained my heart. So it helped me connect to what I really wanted. And that paved the way for me to fall madly in love with the man I'm with today, with Forrest. And I would have missed that had I continued on that path of disconnection, of not knowing myself. And in falling in love with Forrest and realizing this amazing truth that we should all know ourselves, it helped me realize that feeling of falling in love, that romance that you have with your significant other, you can have that with your whole life. And in fact, your whole life on some level can be a seduction. I don't mean to make that sound weird, but it's like this romantic dance with those things around you that set your heart on fire, whether that's your career or your hobbies or your family or all of those things. And so this event, even though it was, it gutted me, it was rough, it has allowed me to get clearer and clearer on what it is that I want. And it really ultimately paved the way for me to realize in my own path to transformation that I was owning other people's stories of what transformation should look like. It was cookie cutter. And now it's allowed me the opportunity to find a path that sets my heart on fire. Now, it wasn't easy, as I said. The actual path, that from the moment I realized, oh my goodness, I need to abort this situation, until I finally had the conversation and did the thing of moving out and filing the papers and doing all that stuff. For me to get to that point, I both was aware of what my heart wanted from that point on. I became acutely connected to anything that set my heart on fire. Like, if a song came on that made me want to dance, I would dance. I'm glad I was on the 3rd floor of the apartment I moved into, because I'm sure there were a lot of dancing going on at that point. If there was a food I loved, if there was anything I loved, I just embraced it with every part of me. Now, it wasn't easy as that people pleaser to be able to stand up and say, no, this is what I want for my life. But in order to do that, I also began strengthening my outer body to give my inner soul the strength to do it. And so that was a time where working out really, really came to the rescue. I was running down at the lake regularly. I was practicing yoga. About that time was when I actually started at Fighting Fit. And all of that working out gave me the mental fortitude. It helped me work off energy. It helped me metabolize all those feelings that I was feeling. And guys, most of all, the last thing that I did to get through all of this was I gave myself full and complete permission to mourn. So, as I said, I was mourning the relationship. I was mourning my own actions and the fact that by not knowing what I wanted, I hurt somebody and I hurt his family. And so I did a lot of crying. And I don't particularly enjoy crying, although I know I've teared up on at least one of these videos. But I just let all of those emotions out, and I healed. And now, my friends, I offer to you this final thought. If you feel at all disconnected to what you truly desire, I invite you to consider that by connecting to what you truly want, you will actually be loving the people around you and taking more care of them than you could possibly imagine. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's Sunday evening. If you stuck with me this far, thank you for being with me in this space. Like I said, today is the last day I'm doing these videos in this space. Tomorrow I'll be moving the videos over to another private Facebook group. The link is up in the post. Comment below if any of this resonates. And I love to hear you guys share. I'd love to hear what sets your heart on fire. Have a great weekend, you guys.